Hello and welcome to another discussion video with myself and Sam. Today, the topic of today's discussion is we're gonna talk about British people on holidays. What British people tend to do on holidays, where we tend to go, some of the stereotypes about Brits who are on vacation or on holiday. So that's going to be the topic of today. I guess we'll start, Sam. I just want to know, where do you think the average Brit goes on holiday? What are some normal destinations that where a British person would go, do you think?
Oh, that's a great question. Tricky one to start off. Well, of course, it tends to depend on the age of the person. But I'll give an example for someone around my age, in their early 20s. I say there are two main areas that British people like to go. The first is a European party holiday. Places like Ibiza, Zante, Magaluf, Albufeira in Portugal, those are all very popular amongst people of my age for lads or girls holidays. And the second type of holiday tends to be backpacking. And for this, by far, the most popular location for young British people is Thailand. Thailand, Vietnam, occasionally Cambodia as well. But East Asia seems to be really, really popular with backpackers these days.
Yeah, definitely. That's absolutely true. Of course, for older age groups, maybe people in their 50s or 60s, or maybe people with families, they're probably a bit less likely to travel all the way to Thailand. They might go to Spain, but within the UK, right? Within the UK, there are some other pretty common destinations for older people or people with families. For example, Cornwall. Cornwall is an area in the southwest of the UK. In fact, they even have their own language there. It's called Cornish. You guys probably didn't know about that. Yeah, there's a language called Cornish. It's a very small language. There are not many speakers of this language, but Cornwall is a place where people go to relax. They go camping. Maybe they do a bit of surfing. Maybe it depends. But yeah. Now, Sam, you mentioned
the most important part, James. Home of the Cornish pasties.
Yeah, that is the most important part. Yeah, you can get Cornish pasties in Cornwall, and they're really nice. If you don't know what a Cornish pasty is, it's a traditional food from the area called Cornwall in the southwest of the UK. And, it's pastry, really thick pastry inside, usually beef, potatoes, onions, this kind of thing. So yeah, you should try one day. Anyways, Sam, you mentioned before something about, you used the word lads, and you mentioned something about where lads go on holiday. What do you mean? What are you talking about when you talk about a lads holiday? What's that?
Yeah, so a lads holiday is a term that we hear get thrown around a lot these days. A lad's holiday refers to a group of male friends, usually, but not all the time, in their late teens and early 20s. And it refers to a holiday where they go without parents, without girlfriends. They go just as a group of friends. They go to party and they go to drink heroic amounts of alcohol. The lads' holiday has become a very huge part of British culture. If you want a little insight into what lads' holidays look like, I can definitely recommend the first In-Betweeners movie. And there was an old series called Sun, Sea, Sex and Suspicious Parents, or Sun, Sea and Suspicious Parents, something like that. And it will give you a great insight into what a British lad's holiday looks like.
Yeah, a lad's holiday is basically a holiday where young guys can basically just let loose a little bit, right? They can really sort of let loose and go a bit crazy in another country. Actually, when I was 19 years old, I did actually go on a lad's holiday. I went to an island called Zante, which is in Greece.
No.
Which is a typical, like classic, typical place for a British 19-year-old to go on a lad's holiday. And basically, the holiday consisted of getting absolutely smashed every single day. That was really the main event of the holiday, was getting absolutely smashed every day. We did lots of binge drinking, right? Lots of binge drinking and just doing really stupid things, really. Sam, have you ever been on a lad's holiday before?
I have. I'd like to say, thankfully, never to Zante, and thankfully, never to Magaluf either. Those are two of the most typical ones that you hear people talking about. I'd like to say my lad's holiday was slightly classier. I went when I was a little bit older than 19, when I was 22 years old, I believe, during my master's year at university. We went to Albufeira in Portugal, and similarly to you, James, we spent the time getting absolutely rat-arsed. The days would consist of us waking up at about 5 p.m. Directly outside of our hotel, there was a McDonald's and a KFC. We would go there, try and eat away the hangover, and then get straight back to drinking. We'd usually return back home to the hotel at around 5 or 6 in the morning, ready to start the cycle all over again.
What was this term? Absolutely rat-arsed, you say. That's
Absolutely
a good one.
Rat-arsed, yes.
That's a good one. Great. Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy the lads' holiday? Was it everything that you had hoped for with a lads' holiday?
I have quite mixed feelings on it, in all honesty. I had a fantastic time. I really, really enjoyed it. Mainly because I got to spend time with my friends. And as lots of you guys listening will know, as we get older, we don't get to see our childhood friends as much. Definitely not for 4, 5, 6 days at a time. However, I did have a few issues with the holiday. Firstly, lads' holidays are very expensive. The hotels and the flights tend to be a bit cheaper, but the amount of money you spend on alcohol whilst you're there is catastrophic. I was easily spending over €100 every night just on alcohol alone. That's not including food, the flights, souvenirs, transport, extra things we wanted to do. Secondly, I feel like the idea of the lads' holiday and those sort of areas really bring out the worst elements of society. We often see it when alcohol and other substances get wrapped up into a night out. There's lots of fighting, lots of sort of people being drunk and disorderly, lots of quite creepy older men sort of waiting around trying to talk to girls who were a little bit too drunk. And yeah, it definitely wasn't good vibes whilst we were there the whole time. I had a good time, but I behaved as responsibly as possible whilst I was there. Not everybody fared the same way.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lad's holiday is a place where you're really gonna splash out quite a lot. You probably splash out on expensive drinks, and you'll splash out on going to expensive clubs. There's usually an entry fee to get in the club, for example, right? So yeah, it's the kind of place where you really splash out, and it's not unheard of. It's not unheard of to spend at least more than £1,000 on a lad's holiday. It's really not unheard of. I have friends who have done that, and yeah, it's definitely the place where people really like to splash out.
And on top of that, James, we both went to relatively cheap locations, or at least comparatively. I have some friends who are really into techno music, so they love Ibiza. Ibiza is like their paradise. And the amount of money you have to spend on a single drink there or entry into a club is crazy. So if you go to a place like Ibiza or Marbella in Spain, yeah, the price of your holiday can really rack up a lot.
Do you think that nowadays, now that you're a little bit older, a little bit wiser, a little bit more mature, would you like going on a lad's holiday now? Like, would you still enjoy it? Or perhaps not? What do you think?
After my first lads holiday, I said one and done. I said there's nothing that would get me back onto a lads holiday. Traveling is a really special experience, and it's something we only get to do once a year if we're lucky. Sometimes not even that frequently. So I did feel like that trip abroad was almost a big waste of my time, my money. I went to Portugal. It's the only time I've ever been to Portugal, and I learned absolutely nothing about the country. Something I do look back on with a bit of sadness, I'll say. I didn't take advantage of the opportunity as I perhaps wish I did. It was an important experience. I feel like every young British man needs to go on a lad's holiday at least once, but it's not something I'd rush to do again, especially not now that I've stopped drinking alcohol as well.
Yeah, I think we had similar experiences on our lads' holiday. I went to a Greek island. To be honest, if I went to Zante now, I would probably move away from the main party area and I would go and explore like the rest of the island. Because I imagine that outside of the main strip, right, there's a main strip with all the clubs in Zante. That's where everybody goes. But I imagine if you go outside of the main strip and you explore a bit, it's probably a really interesting place, actually. So, yeah, if I were to have the chance, to go back to Zante, I would definitely explore a bit more. And also, if I had been a bit more mature when I was younger, I would have definitely done things a bit differently. Now, British people do have a bit of a reputation abroad, particularly, I would say, in Europe, I would say. Sam, what do you think everybody else in the world thinks about British holiday makers? Like, do you think that we have a positive reputation or a negative one in different countries?
So it definitely depends on where we are in the world. I've found here in South America that whilst our government is not particularly liked by people, British people themselves are quite well received, because the majority of British people coming to South America come with good intentions. They come with this idea of backpacking, learning about the sort of culture, etc. So I feel like we're quite well received in this part of the world. In Europe, however, it's not always the case. When you ask me about the sort of stereotypes of a British holiday goer, I think of a big, fat, bald man with a huge tattoo on his arm of the British flag, maybe a tattoo of his football club, some obscure team like Blackburn Rovers, a massive beer belly, and asking for one beer, por favor. I think that is, oh yeah, I have to say burnt as well. Very, very burnt from the sun. That is the stereotype of us in Europe, and I have to say there's a lot of truth to it as well.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, definitely sunburned. There's, British tourists or British people on holiday in hot countries are usually, or quite often, bright pink from being in the sun all day and not knowing how to apply sun cream properly. I also think in Europe, we also have a reputation for having like a really bad fashion. Like a lot of British people tend to go to like Italy and Spain and France and so on, like wearing like an England football shirt and like a pair of shorts and like flip-flops or whatever. And, British people in Europe don't really, take much care with what they're wearing. Whereas a lot of Europeans are actually quite like interested in like being fashionable and wearing like a certain style of clothes. So I know that we do get made fun of by, the French and the Italians and so on for that. In Spain, of course, we have a terrible reputation. British people have a really bad reputation in Spain because I believe it is the number one destination abroad for British people. I think that's true. It's the most commonly visited place.
Sorry to interrupt you, James. I believe last year Spain was the most visited country in the world, full stop. So not just by British people.
There you go. Yeah, because Spain is a really nice place to visit. I think that Spanish people do get a bit sick of British tourists. There has been...
I would too.
I would be really sick of us. I mean, not me. I don't behave like this when I travel. But to be honest, when I am abroad in Spain or somewhere and I do see like British people on holiday who are British, I do avoid them. I do try to actually avoid them. I don't really want to speak with them. I was just going to say, there's a phenomenon in Spain with British people going up to the balcony in the hotel and trying to jump from their balcony into the swimming pool, right? So they try to jump from their balcony down into the swimming pool, and there have actually been quite a number of deaths from this, from drunk British people trying to jump from the balcony into the swimming pool, but actually missing the swimming pool and smacking down on the hard concrete below.
Trust me, as a lifeguard, even if you got into the swimming pool, if you've jumped from high enough, it's not going to stop you.
Yeah, but you know, a drunk British tourist is not going to be thinking about this. He's just going to think about how much of a lad he would be and how much he would impress all of his friends by
liquid courage, we call that.
Liquid courage, yes, liquid courage. When you drink alcohol, you get a little bit more confident, don't you? That's what we call liquid courage. Like, Sam, what would be like one of the most popular places like in Spain for like the typical British tourist to go and visit, do you think?
Well, the most stereotypical one is, of course, Benidorm. Now, Benidorm is basically known as Little Britain within Spain. It is a part, or a city, I guess is a better word to say it, of Spain towards the south. I believe on the southeast coast, in the region of Andalusia. And in Benidorm, it is a popular holiday destination for older British people. Funnily enough, this place is essentially Britain in the sun. You'll find hundreds of pubs, fish and chip shops, really bad nightclubs. It's where British people go when they want to go on holiday, but they don't want to come across any foreigners. It is really, really a bit of an enigma in the world, in all honesty. Something very strange. And it's very much a part of British culture to sort of talk and laugh about this idea of going to Benidorm. It's an exceptionally popular destination for stag parties and hen nights. A stag party is what the Americans would call a bachelor party. So the big party that a guy has before his wedding. And the same, but just vice versa, for the hen night as well. If you are interested in this idea of Benidorm, I really recommend you to do a little bit of research on the place. There are some amazing YouTube videos out there of British people going to Benidorm and documenting their experience. So if it's something that sounds like fun to you, definitely do a little bit of extra research.
Yeah, you know, I was just thinking, the impression that people have of British people on holiday, it really depends where they are. Like, for example, you know, different kinds of British people will go to different kinds of places. So I don't know what to say really, but the kind of person who would go on a holiday to Ibiza or Benidorm or somewhere like that is a very different kind of person to someone who would go to, say, Argentina, where you are, right? So it's not a surprise that people in Spain sometimes don't have the best impression of British people. Whereas, you know, I think people in different countries around the world, like Argentina, or maybe Colombia or somewhere else, they probably get a different kind of person, right? Because it's a different kind of person who will really go on a trip like that compared to in Spain, probably. Would you say?
Yeah. Yeah, there's been lots of cities complaining about tourists, British tourists being amongst them, but tourists in general. And it's always complaints about the type of tourists that they are attracting. I know Amsterdam and Barcelona are two places that have really been complaining about the behaviour of tourists. The Barcelona issue is a bit more complex when it comes to Airbnbs and renters' rights, but it's still a big idea about tourists go to these cities just to party. They do not go there for any cultural experiences. They basically go there, drink alcohol, vomit or pee on the streets, and just cause trouble, essentially. I know Amsterdam is really trying to crack down on that. And we see that out over in sort of backpacker destinations as well. Places like Thailand, which, really attract people because once you're in the country, it has a very cheap cost of living. But a big problem that British people have is when we start drinking, many people find it difficult to stop. And pushing our boundaries, especially in a country where beer is less than $1, it happens. And yeah, it's completely understandable why there's a sort of stereotype or impression about British people. But I think most of the world realizes as well that it's not all British tourists. I'd even say most British tourists are fantastic. They're the exact type of people that you want to come and visit your country. They're going to spend lots of money. That's the most important thing, of course. So yeah, it's a bit of an interesting issue, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, when I travel to other places, I do try to blend in as much as I can with the local culture, try to act respectfully, and try to fit in, in a way. It's I always try to do that, right? I try to make an effort to fit in with the culture, and I don't really like when people don't do that. I don't really like it. Anyway, Sam, I suppose that's probably the end of our discussion today. Do you have any final thoughts on this at all?
No, this week, no. I think I've covered my points quite well.
Yeah, hopefully we've healed our British people's reputation abroad a little bit with this discussion, guys.
Nothing will heal the damage that Big Tony has done to the impression of British people abroad.
Yeah, I suppose there's only so much damage control that we can do.
Well, that's all we have time for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed the start of this new mini podcast series that James and I have started. Brits talking about British issues. As always, please leave a like, comment down below, subscribe as well. And also let us know if there's any British issues or British cultural things that you'd like us to discuss in an upcoming episode. We're sure to take your advice on board. Thank you all for watching once again, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.
If you want more videos like this, go to EnglishSponge.com. On the website, you can find videos from many different teachers. You can choose which level you want: A1 beginner, A2 beginner, B1 intermediate, or B2 upper intermediate. You can choose which accent you want to listen to: American, British, Australian, and also other accents. You can choose which topic you want to listen to, and you can choose which grammar point you want to focus on. The website will track your time, so you can see how many minutes you have listened to comprehensible input today, yesterday, and for the whole month. So go to EnglishSponge.com. The link is in the description of the video.